Hey there. So last night I watched the Steve Jobs movie in which Michael Fassbender plays Steve Jobs. I think the movie came out in 2015. And I've seen a Steve Jobs movie before that was played by, I think it was Ashton Kutcher. This one was much more interesting to me because it actually shows more personal reactions of Steve Jobs to people that are in his life. Basically, it shows a lot of his pride, basically his, I guess, his narcissism, really. But it gives a real good look into probably the real thing that drove him, and it had to do with his childhood. When he was adopted, apparently his birth mother gave him up when he was very young, and the first adoption family that took him actually gave him back, and so he had this sense of rejection from that. And then apparently his birth mom wouldn't even keep him even temporarily while they were trying to find another birth parents for him or something like that. But essentially he always had felt this deep sense of rejection or inadequacy because of the way his birth mom had treated him as a baby, basically. And that actually compelled him to make his products the way they were, which were incompatible with everything else. His drive, and it was interesting from the perspective, and I didn't realize this until I saw this movie, and of course, I'm assuming that certain aspects of the movie are correctly showing his attitude, but in the movie it portrays his attitude toward the Apple II product as he had a lot of disdain for it. After the Apple II had made its money in the company, and Wozniak, his buddy Steve Wozniak, wanted to continue with making the products open access like the Apple II was, with slots so that users could change things in the machine. Jobs was more interested in having basically a device that was closed, as in it was a closed network, a closed system that was incompatible with anything else. And the comment in the movie that was made by one of his friends was, and it might have even been Wozniak himself, is that he didn't see the benefit to users of having the computer made with the same flaws as their human creator. So essentially he was relating to Jobs, that his attitude, his desire to be a closed system and not be able to interface with any human around him was basically the type of product he was creating in the future or the newer Apple products, like the Macintosh and then the iMac that came out and actually made a hit. And that's very interesting. And it's also very interesting that the Apple products continue to be their own family of products with no compatibility with anything else other than maybe some software that you might be able to get from Microsoft to put on it. But for the most part, the systems are a closed system, and it reflects, I think, a lot of the way that many technical people think. I, being an engineer, having an engineering background myself, can relate to this. It seems that people that have a technical background typically have had more of an introverted, they have more introverted aspects to them. And who knows, maybe there's something about the relationship with their parents when they were very young And it may not even have anything to do with the way the parents were themselves, but the way the child has responded to the way the parents had treated them, that causes them to go internal and not be as connected as, say, people who are more extroverted. So one thing that came out of this movie that was very fascinating to me is even though I look at Steve Jobs and I say, this guy he was a real mover and shaker, and he had awesome ideas and had grown a company with great innovation, but he also left a path of dead bodies in his wake. And that's the very disturbing thing about him. And of course, he died in 2011 of cancer at the relatively young age of 56 years old, after struggling with cancer for about 8 years. So this is a man whose past and whose inability to heal from it basically haunted him all his life and drove him to the success that he had, and eventually killed him, and also affected every relationship that he had, personal relationship he had with anybody else, and professional as well. So he alienated people, and even though he was a great thinker and he had a lot of people that worshiped him like a god, the people who were close to him had a really hard time relating to him or connecting with him, because he shut himself out. He kept himself at a distance from everyone else. And it seems like he was always keeping that distance as a protection of getting hurt the way he felt when he was a child. So I look at myself and things that have happened in my life, and I realize when I look at my past, many of my relationships, and I saw the reactions in that movie that he made to certain people. And although I won't say that my reactions have been quite as violent as his, or maybe not nearly as impactful as far as the number of people he influenced, I did see aspects of his personality in me, which I thought was very disturbing. So, but along with that, I also realized that I've been on a path where I'm trying to heal those things. I'm looking within myself and seeing, even before I saw that movie, seeing these things and realizing the detriment that they have to my relationships with the people around me. And I've been working on this path to healing those aspects of my life, including my relationship with my mother and my father. So those areas are key and have been key to me making discoveries that are helping me to heal those places that had deep hurt. And so I'm bringing this to you because it's just some insights that I have. And I think it's an insight and maybe a warning for all people that have a rather technical bent to them, that tend to move more in a love for machines and a love for technology versus a love for people. A lot of times there seems to be that attraction to, well, I'm going to go into a field where I'm working with computers, I'm working with machines, I'm working with electronics, with engines, with motors, so I don't have to relate so much to people. I can be closed off in my little office and do all the design work without hardly interacting with anybody. And then I don't have to be concerned about, am I making a lot of friendships? Am I gregarious? Am I socially awkward or not? And that actually causes technical people to go into those fields. And I think it's largely because they have this background. They have something in their past that basically gnaws at them and keeps them from having that sociability maybe that others do. Now, that's not to say that there aren't extroverted technical people. I have a friend who's very extroverted and very social, and also is a computer programmer. I would say, though, that that tends to be less of the case. Most often what I see is people in technical fields who tend to have a little more social awkwardness, or they're not as willing to go out to the parties and feel comfortable around a large group of people, or in areas where they need to be social with others. So, and that doesn't mean they can't stand up in front of a crowd and give a great speech and talk at length about things they're passionate about in front of hundreds or thousands of people. But when it comes to interacting one-on-one, going out with people in a large social setting, they are not the people who are going to be the life of the party. They're going to be the wallflowers. So, and I think that by healing these instances where they have basically gone internal and said, I just really don't want to relate to people like that because it's either too humiliating or hurtful, or whatever it is, the pain aspect that they felt that has caused them to not want to venture into other more social fields, they tend to gravitate then toward the fields of technology and science, maybe. So I just thought I'd share that insight today, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.